Hi dear students, welcome to Kavitha's NEET classes. In this lecture, we shall discuss an important gland of the endocrine system, that is the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is also called as the supreme commander or the control center of the endocrine system. So even before we start understanding what is the hypothalamus, what is its structure, what are the functions, what are the hormones it secretes, and where is it located, first let us understand what is an endocrine system, what are glands, what is a hormone. After discussing a few brief things about the endocrine system, we shall start the discussion about hypothalamus. What are glands first of all? Glands are important organs which are located throughout a body. These glands synthesize and secrete certain substances which have certain functions. I'll repeat, glands are important organs which are located throughout a body. They synthesize and secrete substances which carry out certain specific functions. Though we have various glands throughout a body, all of them can be classified into two types. One is the exocrine gland and the other one is the endocrine gland. So what is the difference between an exocrine gland and what does it actually do, and what is an endocrine gland? First of all, exocrine gland. Exocrine glands are the ones which synthesize and secrete chemical substances into channels called as ducts. D-U. So, exocrine glands are the glands which synthesize and secrete substances into ducts which empty into certain organs. Say, take the example of salivary gland or take the example of liver. Each of these have ducts. These are the ducts through which the substances which are synthesized and secreted by the gland are moved, or it passes through the duct into the target organ. These glands are called as exocrine gland. Example, liver, salivary gland, all these are glands which have ducts. These glands are called as exocrine gland. So now moving on to endocrine gland. What is an endocrine gland? Endo in Greek, the word endo means within, and the word crine. So endocrine can be split into two words, endo and crine. In the Greek terminology, endo means within and crine means to secrete. So, what do we mean by endocrine glands? Here, the cells of the endocrine gland synthesize and secrete substances which do not pass through a duct. They are directly absorbed by the blood capillaries surrounding the cells, and it is through this blood it reaches the target cells where it carries out certain metabolic activities or whatever certain functions that it has to perform. This kind of gland is called as endocrine gland, and the chemical substances which are produced by the endocrine gland are called as hormones. Okay, endocrine glands are also called as ductless gland. So the exocrine glands are the glands which have ducts. The chemicals or the substances which are produced by the exocrine gland pass through the ducts into the particular organ where it has to carry out the specific certain functions. So these glands have duct, whereas in endocrine gland they do not have a duct. The cells of the gland synthesize and secrete substances called as hormones which are directly absorbed into the blood in the surrounding capillaries, and through the blood these substances called hormones move to the target place where they carry out the functions or whatever activities they are supposed to perform. So this is about exocrine gland and endocrine gland. So what are hormones? Hormones are the chemical substances which are synthesized and secreted by the endocrine glands. You can also say hormones are the non-nutrient chemicals which act as intercellular messengers and are produced in trace amounts. Hormones are non-nutrient chemicals which are produced in trace amounts and they act as intercellular messengers. So now you know what is a gland, what are the different types of gland, that is the exocrine gland and the endocrine gland, and then you also know what is a hormone. So what do we mean by the endocrine system? What all comes under the endocrine system? The endocrine glands along with the hormone producing tissues and cells which are located in different regions of our body together constitute our endocrine system. Okay, so what is the endocrine system? Our endocrine system comprises of the hormone synthesizing tissues, cells, and also the endocrine organs which are located throughout our body. So what are the various endocrine organs? Endocrine organs are hypothalamus, pineal gland, pituitary gland, thyroid gland, pancreas, testis. Like this we have various endocrine glands in our body. Okay, so in this lecture we will be discussing about the important endocrine gland hypothalamus, and in our future lectures we will be discussing in depth about each one of these endocrine glands. So you understood what is endocrine system, isn't it? Endocrine system is the system which comprises of all the endocrine glands and the tissues and the cells which secrete hormones and which are located in different parts of our body. This entire system is the endocrine system. In this lecture, we shall discuss about hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, as I already told you, hypothalamus is called as the supreme commander or control center of the endocrine system. It is a supreme commander of the endocrine system. So first we shall try to understand where is the hypothalamus situated and what is its structure, even before we discuss what are the functions, that is what are the hormones that are synthesized and secreted by the hypothalamus. First about the location and the structure of hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is situated in the diencephalon or the forebrain. So we know we have three parts of the brain, isn't it? Forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So forebrain is also called as diencephalon. So the hypothalamus, the gland hypothalamus, is situated in the forebrain, which is also called as diencephalon, and it lies below or inferior to the thalamus. So here in this picture you can see this region is the thalamus. Okay, and this structure which you see here, this is the hypothalamus. So this region is considered as the forebrain, and here you get the midbrain and hindbrain. We will be discussing more about the different regions of the brain, etc. in another lecture. So here you need to know that the hypothalamus is located in the forebrain, which is also called as diencephalon. This region here, this is the thalamus, and since the hypothalamus is situated below the thalamus or in an inferior position to the thalamus, it is called as hypothalamus. Okay, so why is hypothalamus called so? Because it is situated in an inferior position to the thalamus or just below the thalamus, it is called as hypothalamus. So it lies below or inferior to the thalamus. And one important function which it serves is, it provides an anatomical connection between the nervous and the endocrine system through the hypophysis. So here you can see the hypophysis. What is hypophysis? Hypophysis means pituitary gland. So please do not forget, whenever you get questions in the examination, instead of pituitary gland, they might use the word hypophysis in your question. So at that time, you should not think that hypophysis is something else and you do not have any idea about that. Okay, so this is how they make the questions tricky. Fine. So pituitary gland is also called as hypophysis. The hypothalamus provides an anatomical connection between the nervous system and the endocrine system through the hypophysis, which is also called as the pituitary gland. That is, the hypothalamus is a connection between the nervous system and the endocrine system. How it provides the connection? It is an anatomical connection through the pituitary gland. I hope you understood. Fine. The hypothalamus is connected to the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland by hypophyseal portal veins. So in pituitary gland, we have the anterior lobe, which is again comprised of pars distalis, pars intermedia, and the posterior lobe, which is also called as pars nervosa. Don't worry, we will be discussing all of this when we discuss about the pituitary gland. As of now, you just need to know that the pituitary gland has two regions, that is the anterior and the posterior. This is the anterior region of the pituitary and this is the posterior region of the pituitary. Fine. So the hypothalamus is connected to the pituitary. How is it connected? It is connected to the anterior lobe, that is this lobe. It is connected to the anterior lobe of the pituitary through hypophyseal portal veins. Here you can see this red color from here. So this is coming all the way from the hypothalamus and it is connecting to the anterior lobe of the pituitary. So the hypothalamus is connected to the anterior lobe of the pituitary to the hypophyseal portal veins. Then how is it connected to the posterior lobe of pituitary? It is connected to the posterior lobe of pituitary mainly by axons of the neurosecretary cells. The hypothalamus has neurosecretary cells called as nuclei. Please do not confuse this nuclei with the nucleus of the cell. Okay, so this is where you will start getting confused. So please do not get confused. So even in your examination, you might get questions using these terms. Instead of using the term instead of using the term neurosecretary cell, they might use the term nuclei. So please do not get confused. The neurosecretary cells which are present in the hypothalamus are called as nuclei. Got it? So these you can see here, these are the neurosecretary cells. Okay, the neurosecretary cells, the axon of these neurosecretary cells are connected to the posterior lobe of pituitary. So we know that the nerve cell has an axon, isn't it? And the axon has terminal ends through which the signals are passed. Fine. So these neurosecretary cells have axons which are connected to the posterior pituitary gland. Okay, so how is the hypothalamus connected to the pituitary gland? The hypothalamus is connected to the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland through the hypophyseal portal veins. So these red veins here, these are the hypophyseal portal veins, and hypothalamus is connected to the posterior lobe of pituitary gland through the neurosecretary cells. That is, the axons of the neurosecretary cells are connected to the posterior lobe of pituitary gland. So now we know about the location and the structure of hypothalamus. So where exactly it is located and how it is connected to the pituitary gland. So what is the function of hypothalamus. The hypothalamus secretes hormones which influence the functioning of the pituitary gland. Actually, we call pituitary gland as a master gland, whereas this gland, hypothalamus, controls the pituitary gland. Hence, it is aptly called as the supreme commander or the control center of the endocrine system. Got it? So, it is the hypothalamus gland which actually controls the pituitary glands. That is, it either stimulates the secretion of certain hormones from the pituitary gland or it inhibits the secretion of hormones from the pituitary gland. So, this is the gland which controls the pituitary gland and hence it is called as the supreme commander. Okay. The hypothalamus contains several neurosecretory cells. These are the neurosecretory cells called the nuclei which produce hormones. And it is these hormones which regulate the synthesis and secretion of hormones from the pituitary gland. Okay. So, the hypothalamus has cells called as neurosecretory cells which synthesize and secrete hormones called as neurohormones. Okay. And these hormones regulate the synthesis and secretion of the hormones from the pituitary gland. So basically, the hypothalamus secretes two kinds of hormones. One is the releasing hormone and the other one is the inhibiting hormone. So what is a releasing hormone? A releasing hormone is one which stimulates the pituitary to secrete certain hormones. That is, it stimulates the secretion of the pituitary hormones. These hormones are called as releasing hormones. Then it has another set of hormones which it synthesizes and secretes, that is the inhibiting hormones. That is, these hormones inhibit the secretion of hormones from the pituitary. Got it? So, the hypothalamus secretes two kinds of hormones. One is the releasing hormone which stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete hormones, and the other set of hormones which inhibit the pituitary from secreting hormones. So, these are called as releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. So, the neurosecretory cells of hypothalamus secrete the hormones called as neurohormones which can be classified into releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. So basically the hypothalamus synthesizes 9 types of hormones, that is including both the releasing hormones and the inhibiting hormones. They are adenocorticotropic releasing hormone ARH, adenocorticotropic releasing hormone, that is this hormone stimulates the release of adenocorticotropic hormone from the pituitary. Okay, we will not be going in depth or we will not be discussing in depth with each of these hormones because these are not very essential. If you just know that the hypothalamus secretes hormones which can be divided into two categories, which either stimulate the secretion of hormones from the pituitary called as releasing hormones, and the other group is the hormone which inhibits the secretion of hormones from the pituitary, that is called as inhibiting hormones. And basically it secretes 9 kind of hormones including both releasing and the inhibiting hormones, and what they are. If you know that much, that is sufficient and you need not go too much into depth of each of these. Okay, so adenocorticotropic releasing hormone which stimulates the release of adenocorticotropic hormone in the pituitary. Then thyrotropin hormone or thyrotropin releasing hormone. Thyrotropin releasing hormone which stimulates the secretion of thyroid stimulating hormone in the pituitary. So what happens when this hormone is released by the hypothalamus? it goes to the pituitary and stimulates the pituitary to release the thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, so this is also a releasing hormone and this is also a releasing hormone. Next comes the growth hormone releasing hormone. So what does this do? This goes and stimulates the pituitary to secrete the growth hormone. So this is also a releasing hormone. Next, growth hormone inhibiting hormone. So what happens when hypothalamus secretes this growth hormone inhibiting hormone? It goes to the pituitary and it stops the production of growth hormone in the pituitary. So this is a inhibiting hormone, right? Next, gonadotropin releasing hormone. This hormone stimulates the pituitary to synthesize and secrete luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, which we in short call it as LH and FSH. So gonadotropin releasing hormone is again a releasing hormone which when secreted by the hypothalamus, it goes to stimulate the pituitary to secrete luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. You can see here in this picture how the secretions of this hypothalamus reach the pituitary gland and how they stimulate the pituitary gland to either synthesize and secrete a hormone or inhibit the secretion of a hormone. Next is the prolactin releasing hormone. This is a releasing hormone, that is the prolactin releasing hormone stimulates the pituitary to secrete prolactin, and this is the prolactin inhibiting hormone. So you know what it does. Next is the melanocyte stimulating hormone releasing hormone. So melanocytes are the cells which are responsible for giving us the pigmentation of our skin, isn't it? Melanin is a component, it is a pigment which is responsible for giving us the skin color. So it is the melanocyte stimulating hormone which is responsible and which decides the amount of melanin that is present in our skin. So the melanocyte stimulating hormone releasing hormone, it stimulates the synthesis of melanocyte stimulating hormone in the pituitary, and this is again a inhibitory hormone, that is melanocyte stimulating hormone inhibiting hormone, which inhibits the synthesis and secretion of melanocyte stimulating hormone in the pituitary gland. Okay, so you need not go too much into depth of all these hormones. Just understand that the hypothalamus produces two kinds of hormones, and it is the hypothalamus which controls the secretion of hormones of the pituitary gland, and hence it is called as the supreme commander or the control center of the endocrine system. So it produces two kinds of hormones. One is the releasing hormone and the second one is the inhibiting hormone. The releasing hormones stimulate the pituitary gland to synthesize the hormones and secrete it, whereas the inhibiting hormones inhibits the secretion of certain hormones from the pituitary. So I hope you all have a proper understanding of the hypothalamus gland, which is a very important gland of our endocrine system, isn't it? We shall also discuss about the other glands such as the pituitary gland, pineal gland and other glands of the endocrine system in our upcoming lectures. Until then, for more such interesting lectures, you can subscribe to my channel and you can also connect to me on social media. Until we meet in the next lecture, take care, have a good day.